So normally, to help me look at the camera, I have this list on sticky notes sticking to the bottom of the camera, but it is very long this time with a lot of titles. So I'm going to try and go through them faster by looking at it here. In order, well, this isn't actually in order, this is just an order of the stuff I watched in the past week. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Lovely movie, I always love it. Nice music, nice moral, it kind of sinks in real hard, and just overall an entertaining experience. Summer Wars, I decided, since some DVD collection people were watching it, that I would go ahead and rewatch it as well, even though I completely expected to not like it again, and everything that irritated me about it the first time irritated me the second time. Since I've been watching a number of things, a handful of which have been crappy, I've probably been receiving a kind of anime withdrawal, anger perhaps. Voices of a Distant Star, enjoyed that one as usual, always beautiful, love the music. Redline, awesome, very spectacular, adrenaline pumping, something or the other. Hacksign DVDs 1 and 2, because so Charles has watched a number of things, and I think Evangelion is one. We probably had to watch something else where it's like some of the anime. Oh yes, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where some of an underlying theme that both of those kind of have in common that make them really impactful is this concept of analyzing of being human, and going along those themes, Hacksign was a natural progression. Hopefully he's mentally equipped so that he can enjoy it, as opposed to just getting so enthralled by the mysteries that he would get disappointed by them not being solved, which I've said, like Lost, it doesn't really have the goal of solving them per se. Let's see, Cardcaptor Sakura DVD 1 came up because I think he was trying to get away from some things that are kind of downers and looking for something more happy, upbeat, and since eventually we want to explore Madoka Magica, I wanted to introduce him to some traditional magical girl stuff, which Cardcaptor Sakura comes to mind, although the fact that she doesn't have a transformation sequence is maybe not too bad, since you kind of expect that, and it's about the only unusual thing about Cardcaptor Sakura. Love the first 4 episodes that are on the first DVD, of course. Let's see, I also watched the Oh My Goddess movie, because I sent the other disc up to the DVD collection prize vaults, although it's a disc only at this point, so it's their choice what they want to do with it. Worst case, they hold on to it, somebody in their collection, I don't care. But the basic idea is, watch it again. A really good question came to mind that helped me kind of understand why that movie has as much of an impact on me, and that's because it's kind of the harem concept maturing. That's almost what the entire movie is about. I mean, it begins in a way where it's like, 3 years have passed, things are kind of settled down, but you can kind of see some of those same hijinks kind of hide themselves around the corner. Big event happens that is that feels worthwhile to have been made into a movie, right? And at the end, you kind of feel like you have kind of their odd relationship matures in its own way. That isn't necessarily a normal way, I guess, but it kind of feels somewhat respectable, and I think I really respect the movie for that. Let's see, we watched Animal Treasure Planet, which is a fairly old movie, maybe early 70s, and it was interesting. Not necessarily particularly spectacularly executed story-wise. I mean, it kind of had an interesting general idea. I don't know how much of that comes from the original Treasure Island, because admittedly I haven't read books or watched any movies based on it or anything, so I don't entirely know how much of that interesting concept came from the original source material versus new material here, of which I suspect there was a good amount, other than a lot of the cast being animals instead of humans. But the thing about it that actually really had me interested was when it started reaching the second half and actiony stuff started happening, they started playing around a lot more with the animation, and it was actually pretty interesting. I think some of it made me feeling like I could have been seeing animators at work who would later go on to work with Miyazaki and Ghibli. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but a part of me couldn't help but wonder because some of the way the sword fighting was done and the sound effects involved seemed right out of Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind. And Miyazaki isn't completely disconnected from this work insofar as he's credited as having the ideas behind the implementing of it, but not doing much other work. So that one was very interesting. I watched the first 3 episodes of Transformers Headmasters, and it's almost so bad it's good in a way. It's been a long time since I've watched the original Transformers on my own. The Transformers movie from the 80s, that one I still watch, I still think it's cool. But the series itself, well, I have the series. I got glimpses of it as my brother was watching it, and kind of realized it doesn't withstand this. It was very nostalgia coded, I think. Any memories I had of the series being definitely good. Now, to a certain extent, that could mean it is also so bad it's good. But Headmasters, I'm not entirely sure is entirely along the same lines, because again, I only got the general views every here and there of the Transformers series as my brother was watching it, and I wasn't there joining him for most of it. I can say that it almost feels like, since with Headmasters what happened is I believe the US airing stopped and they continued it in Japan, which almost suggests a changeover of authors and stuff. Now this could just be phasing out of generations to start selling new toys, but I can't help but feel like it has that fan fiction-y feel to it, where some of these more important characters are getting phased in and given more importance over older characters out of the blue, which is very strange. But I don't know. And again, it has this quality to it that could be probably seen as so bad it's good, such as 2 robots who are about to get into a gunfight, standing within punching length of each other, pointing their guns at each other and beginning to fire, missing. Talk about stormtrooperitis to the highest degree possible, I guess. Oh well. I also watched the first 10 episodes of Cybuster, and that one I could kind of see more why it was, because there are stupid things happening in that one as well, but well, here's an example of probably the stupidest thing that it's done yet. And there's been a number of things that have just not connected, not made sense, which make it feel like the anime is designed less with what makes sense and more the main character should do this, so events will just so happen to work the way he wants them to. And this one is just a really stupid example. I mean, it's a really good example of it, but it's just an example of the stupidness that sometimes is involved here. But okay, so at a certain point, they're questioning whether or not the company they're working for is really the good guys or the bad guys, and so they're going to lead them away from the enemy robot, which for whatever reason the enemy calls the monster. Even though we've seen it enough where it might not be organic, it in fact looks like it could potentially be robotic, so why call it the monster instead of the robot? But the company's getting kind of close to it. Our main character isn't with them, and he wants to kind of sneak in and not let them know he's sneaking in and kind of trick them, so they're going to take over the two mechas in the back. And so what he does is he climbs onto a mecha and he waves in front of the camera of the mecha, and the pilot inside goes, "Ah, the monster!" And he opens the cockpit and runs away. I mean, the other things that have made me think that it's doing stupid things, I at least gave it some credit that maybe I was missing some context. But that one, I rewatched it and it did this. It did exactly that, and I'm like, well, now I know why this one gets shitty ratings on a lot of sites. I watched Prefectural Earth Defense Force, and that one wasn't so bad. I mean, it's not spectacular as in like, oh, this is a rare thing and everybody should be trying to get it. It's just kind of amusing. It kind of conceptually reminds me a bit of Excel Saga, so I wonder if Excel Saga could have been inspired by it, or they were inspired by a similar third thing that I'm not thinking about. But the idea of, we're going to conquer the world, but we're going to do it in one small place, and being an overall comedy just seems kind of similar. Although Excel Saga, of course, tells it from the point of view of the bad guys who are not, I'd like to say not necessarily bad so much as they're good bad guys, but I don't know. And sometimes the bad guys don't seem so bad in Prefectural, and they feel like character types from their time, which I'm wondering if it felt like the 80s or not. I know that, like, the leader of the bad guys, the telephone pole company, he almost felt like Mendo from Urusei Yatsura, which may actually be intentional, since there's a lot of things about this anime that are referencing a variety of things, including Urusei Yatsura reference mentioned in the translator's notes. But, there's not really much of a story to it, because I guess not a whole lot of it ever got made, but it's still kind of an amusing thing to explore. And the last thing on the list, because the list got so long I started forgetting stuff that was on there, even though I missed the fact that I watched an entire 25 episode series this week, was Legend of the Legendary Heroes, which I don't know what to think about, having watched all of it, other than that I wish there was more to it, because it's obviously an incomplete thing. I mean, I kind of had an idea that it would be, but I knew this time that it would be because I saw somebody comment so much about wanting a second season. That tells me, well, either they don't resolve something or blah, blah, blah. So if I were to try and describe it, it'd be hard to describe exactly what it's a mix of, but it kind of feels like the release of Berserk with some of the same concepts, but inspired by Slayers mixed with something else. I mean, our main two characters are kind of interesting in that regard, in that, our one main character has evil eyes, and Slayers began with a kind of a similar concept. The way they're dressed is almost like Lena Inverse and Gowrie from Slayers, except the genders are reversed and the roles, and their personalities are somewhat different. They actually hit off each other pretty amusingly at times throughout the anime. Their abilities are intriguing, the people they run into are intriguing, and then sometimes the anime slips into, we haven't had enough people dying, so it seems to be making up some sort of quota where I don't even know how to really describe what it does. I mean, because it's not like, I can't describe it as something like Elfenlied or even Claymore, which kind of like to make things very bloody, whereas this one, while there's a lot of blood, they like to do it in a more of a fragility of human sort of way, almost more like the tearing up of paper almost. It's a very strange form of violence. But overall, again, the main problem I have with it is that it didn't really finish, kind of finished on an incomplete story sort of note, which is very different from Slayers, in which, you end the first season, and actually if you finish the first half of the first season, you could almost think there was nothing else to Slayers. Of course, there's the second half of the first season, and then, as you continue with Slayers, it's kind of like, with Slayers, you can feel a universe building up, and that hasn't quite happened with Legend of the Legendary Heroes yet. They begin with this referencing of stuff, but maybe more needs to happen to it. I mean, because that thing about Slayers, I'm talking about the feeling of the expanding of the universe, is you kind of remember these little concepts which are big deals that you kind of realize, I kind of feel like going back and watching Slayers and finding more information about the Clear Bible manuscripts, because I remember those as being a very interestingly abstract kind of, we're on the verge of understanding a completely separate universe from ours sort of thing. And I don't even quite know what all does it, and why Slayers was able to do that and other things, I have no clue. But anyways, that's the list. It's a lot of items to cover. I have to save this and write them all down when I post the video, because otherwise I'm not going to fucking remember these. So there we go. This coming week, I have no clue what I'm going to watch.